You know that moment, when someone you love, completely destroys you with just a few words? I was standing in my grandmother's living room. The same living room where she used to read me bedtime stories. Where she taught me how to tie my shoes. Where I spent every summer, until I was 18. And she looked at me. Right in the eyes. With this, cold expression I had never seen before. I have no grandson. Those 4 words. Just 4 words. But they hit me like a freight train. The silence in that room was deafening. I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the corner. The same clock that used to comfort me as a child. Now it sounded ominous. My heart was pounding so loud. I was sure she could hear it. What did you just say? I whispered. She didn't even blink. You heard me, Daniel. I have no grandson. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. 20. Time felt frozen. My hands were shaking. My mouth went completely dry. This was the woman who raised me when my parents couldn't. The woman who scraped together her social security checks to buy me school clothes. Who stayed up all night when I had pneumonia at age 12. And now, she was disowning me. Because of them. But here's the thing about being betrayed by family. Especially when you're someone like me, someone who always tries to do the right thing. Someone who always puts family first. You reach a breaking point. And when I reached mine, I did something that would change everything. Forever. I pulled out my phone. Opened my banking app. And right there, in front of her, I canceled something. Something that was keeping her in that beautiful assisted living facility. Something that cost me $2,000 every single month. Well, Grandma, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. If you have no grandson, then I guess you have no one paying for Sunset Manor. The color drained from her face. She realized what I had just done. What I was capable of doing. But this story, this isn't just about that moment. This is about 15 years of manipulation. 15 years of being the family scapegoat. 15 years of watching my cousins get everything, while I got nothing but criticism. And how I finally fought back. Let me paint you a picture of my family. Because without context, you might think I'm just some heartless grandson who abandoned his grandmother. But the truth is, my family destroyed me long before I destroyed them. My name is Daniel. I'm 28 years old. And I've been the family disappointment since the day I was born. My grandmother, Eleanor, she had 3 children. My father, Michael, my Aunt Sarah, and my Uncle Robert. But here's the thing about my grandmother. She played favorites. And my father was never her favorite. Uncle Robert? He was the golden child. The successful lawyer who lived in the big house on Maple Street. The one who drove luxury cars and took vacations to Europe every summer. Aunt Sarah. She was the princess. The one who married rich and never worked a day in her life. The one who got everything handed to her on a silver platter. And then there was my dad. The middle child. The one who worked construction his entire life. The one who struggled to pay bills. The one who, according to my grandmother, never amounted to anything. When I was 7 years old, my parents got divorced. Messy divorce. Really messy. My mom couldn't handle my dad's drinking problem, and my dad couldn't handle my mom's constant criticism. So where did I end up? With Grandma Eleanor. Now, you'd think living with your grandmother would be nice, right? Cookies after school. Help with homework. Unconditional love. Not in my case. Living with Eleanor was like walking on eggshells every single day. Because every conversation somehow turned into how disappointed she was in my father. And by extension, how disappointed she was in me. Your father never had any ambition, Daniel, she'd say while folding laundry. I hope you don't turn out like him. Or my personal favorite. Your cousins are getting straight A's in private school. What's your excuse? My cousins. Let me tell you about my cousins. Robert's kids, Madison and Christopher. They went to private school. They had tutors. They had college funds that were fully funded before they even hit kindergarten. Sarah's daughter, Ashley. She was the family princess. Got a brand new car for her 16th birthday. A Mercedes. A freaking Mercedes. And me? I rode the bus to public school. I wore hand-me-down clothes from Goodwill. When I wanted to play Little League baseball, Grandma Eleanor said we couldn't afford it. But somehow she could afford to send Madison to Europe for a summer art program. Somehow she could afford to buy Christopher a brand new laptop for high school. The double standard was suffocating. I remember one Christmas. I was maybe 12 years old. We were all gathered at Eleanor's house for dinner. Uncle Robert brought gifts for everyone. Expensive gifts. Madison got this beautiful gold necklace. Christopher got a gaming console. Ashley got. I don't even remember what Ashley got. Something expensive. And me? I got a $20 gift card to Target. I tried not to show how hurt I was. But Eleanor noticed. And instead of comforting me, she pulled me aside and said, Daniel, you need to understand something. Your Uncle Robert works very hard for his money. Your cousins deserve nice things because their father provides for them. Maybe if your father had worked harder. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The message was clear. I was less deserving because my father was less successful. That's the moment I realized. I would never be enough for this family. No matter what I did. No matter how hard I tried. But I kept trying anyway. Because what else do you do when you're 12 years old and have nowhere else to go? Let me know in the comments where you are watching this video from. I'd love to know. Fast forward to high school. I was actually doing pretty well. I had a 3.8 GPA. I was captain of the debate team. I had gotten accepted to 3 different colleges with partial scholarships. You'd think Eleanor would be proud, right? Wrong. At my high school graduation party, while I'm surrounded by friends and teachers congratulating me, Eleanor pulls me aside and says, I hope you're not expecting me to help pay for college, Daniel. I've already spent enough money raising you. Meanwhile, that same summer, she writes a check for $15,000 to help Madison with her sorority dues. $15,000 for sorority dues. But my college tuition? That was my problem to figure out. I worked 3 jobs through college. 3 jobs. I was a barista in the morning. I worked at the campus library in the afternoon. I delivered pizza at night. I graduated with honors. I got a good job. I started making decent money. And you know what the family narrative became? Oh look, Daniel finally got his act together. Maybe he's not like his father after all. As if everything I had accomplished was somehow surprising to them. As if they had been expecting me to fail this entire time. But here's the kicker. Here's the part that really gets to me. When Eleanor started having health problems 3 years ago, when she needed someone to help her transition to assisted living, when she needed someone to handle her finances and make sure she was taken care of. Who do you think she called? Not Robert. He was too busy with his law practice. Not Sarah. She was too busy with her country club activities. She called me. So there I was, 25 years old, suddenly responsible for my grandmother's entire life. And I didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Because despite everything she had put me through, despite all the favoritism, despite all the times she made me feel worthless, she was still my grandmother. I found her the perfect assisted living facility. Sunset Manor. Beautiful place. Top-rated care. 24-hour nursing staff. Gourmet meals. Activities. Everything an elderly person could want. The cost? $2,000 a month. My salary at the time was decent. But $2,000 a month was significant. That was my entire car payment, plus my rent, plus groceries. But I did it anyway. Every month. For 3 years. Eleanor seemed happy there. She made friends. She participated in activities. The staff loved her because she was charming. She could be charming when she wanted to be. Meanwhile, Uncle Robert would visit maybe once every 2 months. For 30 minutes. Just long enough to ease his guilt. Sarah? She lived 40 minutes away and visited maybe 4 times a year. Usually around holidays. Always with an excuse about how busy she was. But me? I was there every Sunday. Sometimes twice a week. I handled her doctor's appointments. Her medications. Her finances. Everything. And during those visits, Eleanor would tell me stories about the good old days. She'd talk about Robert's latest promotion. Sarah's latest vacation. Madison's engagement to some investment banker. Never once, not once, did she ask about my life. My job. My relationships. My dreams. It was like I was invisible. I was just the grandson who paid the bills and showed up when needed. But I kept telling myself, this is what family does. This is the right thing to do. Until 2 months ago. Madison was getting married. Big wedding. Country club venue. 500 guests. The works. Eleanor had been talking about this wedding for months. How excited she was. How beautiful it was going to be. How proud she was of Madison. 3 weeks before the wedding, I get a call from Aunt Sarah. Daniel? Her voice sounded different. Nervous. Hey Aunt Sarah. What's up? Well, we need to talk about Grandma Eleanor. My stomach immediately dropped. Is she okay? Is something wrong with her health? No. She's fine. It's just, well, about the wedding. There was this long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Sarah? What about the wedding? Well, we've been talking as a family, and we've decided that maybe it would be better if Eleanor didn't attend. I literally stopped walking. I was in the middle of a grocery store parking lot and I just froze. What do you mean she's not attending? It's her granddaughter's wedding. I know. But Daniel, you have to understand. Eleanor she's getting older. She gets confused sometimes. She might say something inappropriate. And this wedding, it's important. There are important people there. Robert's clients. Business associates. My hands were starting to shake. Are you seriously telling me that you're uninviting an 82-year-old woman from her granddaughter's wedding, because she might embarrass you? It's not about embarrassment, Daniel. It's about keeping things smooth. Does Eleanor know about this? Another long pause. We were hoping you could tell her. I hung up. I literally hung up on her. But here's the thing. I didn't tell Eleanor. I couldn't bring myself to tell her. So for 3 weeks, she kept talking about the wedding. What she was going to wear. How she couldn't wait to see Madison walk down the aisle. The day of the wedding arrived. I had to work that Saturday, but I planned to pick up Eleanor around noon to help her get ready. When I got to Sunset Manor, I found her sitting in the lobby. Dressed in her best dress. Hair done. Makeup perfect. Holding a wrapped gift. She looked beautiful. And so excited. Daniel. I've been waiting for you. Are you ready? We don't want to be late. I stood there looking at her. This woman who had raised me. Who had never missed a single one of my school plays, even when she complained about having to go. And I realized. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be the one to tell her she wasn't wanted. So I lied. Grandma, there's been a change of plans. The wedding, they had to postpone it. Last-minute emergency. Her face fell. But she believed me. Oh no. Is Madison okay? She's fine. They'll reschedule soon. 2 days later. Eleanor found out the truth. One of her friends at Sunset Manor, her friend Dorothy. Dorothy's granddaughter had been at the wedding. Dorothy showed Eleanor pictures from Facebook. When I arrived for my regular Sunday visit, Eleanor was waiting for me in her room. Sitting on her bed. The wedding gift, still wrapped, sitting next to her. You lied to me. Those were the first words out of her mouth. Grandma. You lied to me, Daniel. The wedding happened. Madison got married. And no one wanted me there. I sat down next to her. I tried to explain. I tried to tell her it wasn't my decision. That I was trying to protect her feelings. But she wasn't listening. Do you know what this feels like? She whispered. To know that your own family finds you embarrassing? I reached for her hand. Grandma, that's not. She pulled away. I raised those children. I helped pay for Robert's law school. I babysat Sarah's kids every weekend for years. And this is how they repay me. I watched her cry. This strong woman who had never shown weakness in front of me, was sobbing. And something inside me snapped. You know what, Grandma? You're right. They're terrible people. They used you. They abandoned you. And I'm tired of watching them treat you like garbage. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red and swollen. But Daniel, you're different. You're the only one who cares about me. I am different, I said. And I do care about you. But even as I said those words, I knew something had changed. Because I was starting to realize that all those years of favoritism, all those years of making me feel less than, Eleanor had played a role in creating the very family dynamic that was now hurting her. Before I tell you what I did next, if you're enjoying the story, please subscribe. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. The next few weeks were difficult. Eleanor was depressed. She stopped participating in activities at Sunset Manor. She barely ate. She kept asking me why her family didn't love her anymore. And every time she asked, I felt this growing resentment. Because the truth was, Robert and Sarah were treating Eleanor exactly the way Eleanor had taught them to treat people. With conditional love. With favoritism. With cruelty disguised as pragmatism. But I kept my mouth shut. I kept paying the bills. I kept visiting every week. Until last month. I was at Eleanor's birthday party. Her 83rd birthday. I had organized everything. Cake. Decorations. I even invited Robert and Sarah, hoping they would show up. Robert came. For 20 minutes. He gave Eleanor a generic card with a $50 gift card to a restaurant she couldn't even get to anymore. Sarah didn't come at all. She sent a text message. Sorry, can't make it. Girls' trip to Napa. But you know who did show up? Eleanor's friends from Sunset Manor. Her nurse, Patricia. The activities coordinator, Maria. These people, who had known Eleanor for 3 years, cared more about her birthday than her own children. After everyone left, Eleanor and I were sitting alone in the community room. Daniel, she said quietly. Can I tell you something? Of course. I know I wasn't always the best grandmother to you. I looked at her. Surprised. This was the first time she had ever acknowledged anything. I was so focused on Robert's success and Sarah's happiness that I forgot about you. And your father. For a moment, just a moment. I thought this might be it. The apology I had been waiting for my entire life. But you turned out fine anyway, she continued. You're taking care of me now. You're doing the right thing. And just like that, the moment was gone. She wasn't apologizing. She was congratulating herself. For my character. As if my success was somehow her doing. That night, I drove home in silence. And I made a decision. I was going to have a conversation with Robert and Sarah. I was going to tell them exactly what I thought about their behavior. And I was going to demand that they step up and help with Eleanor's care. The confrontation was not what I expected. I called a family meeting. Sunday dinner at Eleanor's favorite restaurant. The Olive Garden on 5th Street. The same place we used to go for special occasions when I was a kid. I told Robert and Sarah it was about discussing Eleanor's care. Making sure we were all on the same page. They both agreed to come. Probably because they thought I was going to ask for help with the bills. Eleanor was excited. She thought this meant the family was finally coming together. She spent an hour getting ready. Picked out her best jewelry. We arrived at the restaurant first. Eleanor and I. I had requested a table in the middle of the dining room. Not some quiet corner booth. I wanted witnesses for what I was about to do. Robert showed up 15 minutes late. Designer suit. Rolex watch. The works. He kissed Eleanor on the cheek and sat down without even looking at me. Sarah arrived 20 minutes late. Fresh from the salon. New handbag that probably cost more than most people's rent. Sorry I'm late, she said breathlessly. Traffic was insane. No traffic. I had driven the same route. She just didn't prioritize this. We ordered. Made small talk. Eleanor was beaming. She kept talking about how wonderful it was to have the whole family together. Robert checked his phone constantly. Sarah kept looking around the restaurant, probably hoping no one she knew would see her at an Olive Garden. After the appetizers arrived, I cleared my throat. So, I said. I wanted to talk to everyone about Eleanor's situation. Her situation? Robert asked, not looking up from his phone. Her care. Her finances. Her future. Sarah sipped her wine. What about it? I thought you had everything handled. I do have everything handled, I said slowly. That's exactly the problem. Now I had their attention. For the past 3 years. I've been paying $2,000 a month for Eleanor's care at Sunset Manor. Robert finally put down his phone. $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month, I repeated. Every month. For 3 years. Eleanor looked confused. Daniel, why are you bringing this up? Because Grandma. I think it's time everyone knew exactly what's been happening here. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folder. A folder I had been preparing for weeks. I have some interesting numbers to share with everyone. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Daniel, what are you doing? I'm having a conversation, I said calmly. About family responsibility. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. Robert. Your law firm made, let me check this, $2.4 million in revenue last year. According to the public records I found online. Robert's face went pale. How do you know that? It's public information. Law firm partnerships have to file certain disclosures. I turned to Sarah. And Sarah. Your husband's investment portfolio is worth approximately $800,000. Also public record. Property tax assessments are fascinating reading. Sarah's mouth fell open. You researched us. I researched my family, I corrected. Because I wanted to understand something. Eleanor was staring at me like I had grown a second head. I wanted to understand how 2 people with a combined family wealth of over $3 million could watch their 28-year-old nephew struggle to pay for their mother's care. The silence at that table was deafening. Daniel. Robert started. I'm not finished, I interrupted. I pulled out another document. This is a breakdown of every expense I've covered for Eleanor in the past 3 years. I started reading. Out loud. In front of everyone in that restaurant. Sunset Manor monthly fees, $72,000. Medical expenses not covered by Medicare, $8,000. Transportation to doctor appointments, $1,200. Medications, $1,500. Clothing and personal items, $2,000. My voice was getting louder. Other diners were starting to look over. The total amount I have spent on Eleanor's care is $84,700. Eleanor gasped. $84,000, I repeated. While Robert bought a second vacation home in the Hamptons. While Sarah remodeled her kitchen for the 3rd time in 5 years. Daniel, stop, Sarah whispered. People are staring. Good, I said. Let them stare. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. You know what's really interesting? I keep very detailed records. And I've been tracking something else. I showed them my phone screen. This is a breakdown of every family event, every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering in the past 3 years. Robert was sweating now. Actually sweating. Eleanor's 81st birthday. I organized and paid for everything. Robert, you came for 20 minutes. Sarah, you didn't come at all. Eleanor's 82nd birthday. Same story. I paid. I planned. You both had excuses. Last Christmas. Eleanor was in the hospital with pneumonia. She was there for 6 days. I was there every single day. Robert, you visited once. For 30 minutes. Sarah, you sent a card. Eleanor was crying now. Quiet tears rolling down her cheeks. But here's my favorite part, I continued. I pulled out my final document. This is a record of every time one of you, either of you, has called Eleanor in the past year. The paper was, mostly blank. Robert. You called Eleanor, 4 times. 4 times in 12 months. Sarah, you called her twice. Twice. But I called her. Sarah started. To ask for money, I finished. Both times. To ask her to help pay for Ashley's car insurance. And to ask her to loan you $3,000 for your anniversary trip to Italy. The entire restaurant could hear us now. I didn't care. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. You treat Eleanor like an ATM when you need something. But when she needs actual care, actual support, actual love, you're nowhere to be found. That's not fair, Robert said weakly. What's not fair, I said, standing up from my chair, is that I've been subsidizing your guilt for 3 years. What's not fair is that Eleanor talks about you constantly. About how proud she is of your success. About how accomplished her children are. While you treat her like an inconvenience. Daniel, please. Eleanor whispered. But I wasn't done. Not even close. You want to know what's really not fair? I asked. I looked directly at Eleanor. What's not fair, is that you spent my entire childhood making me feel worthless. Making me feel like I was less than. Making me feel like I would never be good enough for this family. Eleanor's eyes went wide. And now, when you finally need someone who actually cares about you, you have to depend on the grandson you never believed in. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Daniel. Eleanor said quietly. I never. You never what? I asked. Never made me feel like a failure. Never compared me to my cousins constantly. Never told me I was just like my father, like that was the worst thing someone could be. Robert tried to stand up. Daniel, I think you need to calm down. I laughed. Actually laughed. Robert, you don't get to tell me to calm down. You know why? I pulled out my phone again. This time. I opened my recording app. Because everything that's happened in this family, every lie, every betrayal, every moment of cruelty. I've been documenting it all. Sarah's face went white. You've been recording us? For months, I said. Every conversation. Every phone call. Every interaction. I hit play on the most recent recording. Eleanor's voice filled the restaurant. I have no grandson. The recording played for maybe 10 seconds. But those 10 seconds changed everything. Eleanor's own voice. Crystal clear. I have no grandson. She stared at my phone like it was a weapon pointed at her heart. When did you record that? She whispered. Last week, I said quietly. When you found out about Madison's engagement party. Oh. I hadn't mentioned the engagement party yet, had I? See. 2 weeks after the wedding disaster. Madison got engaged to her investment banker boyfriend. And guess what? Another party. Another celebration that Eleanor wasn't invited to. But this time, Eleanor knew about it in advance. Because Ashley, sweet, naive Ashley, had accidentally mentioned it during one of her rare phone calls. When Eleanor confronted Robert about it, when she asked why she wasn't invited to her own great-granddaughter's engagement party, Robert told her the truth. The real truth. "Mom, you're becoming a liability. You say inappropriate things. You embarrass us in front of important people. It's better if you just stay at Sunset Manor." And that's when Eleanor said it. When she looked at me, the only person who had been taking care of her, and said those 4 devastating words. "I have no grandson." Because if the only grandson who cared about her was an embarrassment by association, then she would rather have no grandson at all. The recording stopped playing. The restaurant was completely silent. Even the servers had stopped what they were doing. Eleanor was sobbing now. Full, body-shaking sobs. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. "Daniel. I didn't mean it." "But you said it," I replied. "You looked at the one person who has sacrificed everything for you, and you disowned me. Because you were embarrassed. Because you thought it would make Robert and Sarah love you more." I put my phone away and sat back down. Well, I hope it was worth it. Because as of today, you're about to find out what it's really like to have no grandson. I pulled out another document. The final document. "This is a notice of financial responsibility transfer," I said. "Effective immediately. I am no longer financially responsible for Eleanor's care." Robert's eyes went wide. "What does that mean?" "It means Sunset Manor will be expecting payment from someone else starting next month. It means Eleanor's medical expenses, her transportation, her medications, all of it, is no longer my responsibility." I slid copies of the document across the table to both of them. "Congratulations. You're both now officially responsible for your mother's care." Sarah was reading the document with shaking hands. "Daniel, you can't abandon her." "I can't abandon her." I laughed bitterly. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm simply following Eleanor's wishes." I looked directly at Eleanor. "You said you have no grandson. So, you don't. Which means the person who has been taking care of you for 3 years, doesn't exist. Which means you'll need to find someone else to foot the bill." Robert was doing math in his head. You could see the panic in his eyes. 2,000 a month. He muttered. That's 24,000 a year. Per person, I clarified. You each owe 12,000 a year. Assuming you split it equally. Of course, you could always move Eleanor into one of your houses. I'm sure you have plenty of room. The look of horror on Sarah's face was priceless. We can't, our houses aren't set up for elderly care. We don't have the facilities. Then I guess you'll be paying Sunset Manor, I said. Unless, you want to find Eleanor a cheaper place. I'm sure there are some lovely state-run facilities that would love to have her. Eleanor was staring at me like she had never seen me before. Daniel, please. I made a mistake. I was hurt. I was angry. I didn't mean what I said. Maybe you didn't mean it, I said. But you felt it. And you said it. And that tells me everything I need to know about how you really see me. I stood up from the table. I'm done being the family scapegoat. I'm done being the one who's expected to sacrifice everything while everyone else lives their perfect lives. I'm done being grateful for scraps of affection from people who see me as a burden. I put on my jacket. The transfer takes effect in 30 days. That gives you time to figure out payment arrangements with Sunset Manor. They're very reasonable people. They'll probably set up a payment plan. I started walking toward the exit. But then I stopped. Turned around. Walked back to the table. Oh. One more thing. I pulled out my phone again. Remember how I said I've been documenting everything? Robert and Sarah exchanged nervous glances. Well, I've been thinking about writing a book. About family dynamics. About elder care. About how wealthy families abandon their responsibilities. I smiled. I think it would make a fascinating story. Maybe even a bestseller. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. You wouldn't. Try me, I said. And then I left. Just walked out of that restaurant and drove home. The phone calls started within hours. First call was from Robert. Voice message, Daniel, we need to talk. We can work something out. Call me back. Second call was from Sarah. Voice message, Daniel, you're being ridiculous. You can't just abandon family. This isn't how we handle things. Third call was from Eleanor herself. Crying. Begging. Daniel, please come see me. Please. We can fix this. I didn't return any of the calls. The next day, I got a text from Robert, we'll split mom's expenses. 50/50ths. But we need you to handle the logistics. We don't know how to manage this stuff. I replied, figure it out. The day after that, I got a letter from a law firm. Robert's law firm. Threatening legal action if I abandoned my familial responsibilities. I forwarded the letter to my own lawyer, along with copies of all my documentation. All my recordings. All my financial records. My lawyer called me back within an hour. Daniel, you're not only in the clear legally, you might have grounds for a lawsuit yourself. Emotional distress. Financial exploitation. The recordings alone are damaging to their character. But I didn't want a lawsuit. I just wanted peace. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Patricia, Eleanor's nurse at Sunset Manor. Daniel? I'm sorry to bother you, but we need to talk about Eleanor's account. We haven't received payment for this month, and we've been trying to reach her family members. Patricia, I said gently. I'm no longer responsible for Eleanor's care. You'll need to contact Robert Miller or Sarah Davidson. I can give you their numbers. There was a long pause. Oh. I see. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. It's not your fault, I said. Eleanor should have informed you about the change. Another pause. Daniel, can I ask, is Eleanor okay? She's been different lately. Withdrawn. She keeps asking when you're coming to visit. My heart broke a little. But I stayed strong. Eleanor is no longer my responsibility, I said. If her family is concerned about her well-being, they know how to reach me. 3 weeks after the restaurant confrontation, I got a text from Madison. Madison. The golden grandchild. The one whose wedding Eleanor wasn't allowed to attend. Daniel. I heard about what happened with Grandma Eleanor. I just wanted you to know. I never asked for her to be uninvited to my wedding. That was my dad's decision. I feel terrible about it. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I replied, Madison. I appreciate you reaching out. But the damage is done. Your family made their priorities clear. I'm just respecting those priorities. She replied immediately, can we talk? Please. I want to make this right. I turned off my phone. Because here's the thing, it was too late for anyone to make this right. The hurt was too deep. The betrayal was too complete. Last week, exactly 1 month after the restaurant incident, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from Sunset Manor. Eleanor had been moved out. Her account was in arrears. Robert and Sarah had found her a different facility. A state-run facility. 30 minutes outside the city. Basic care. Shared rooms. No activities program. I looked up the place online. The reviews were not good. Part of me wanted to call Eleanor. To check on her. To make sure she was okay. But then I remembered her words. I have no grandson. So I deleted the facility's phone number from my browser history. And I went on with my life. The texts from family members became less frequent. Then stopped altogether. I changed my phone number last month. I didn't give the new number to anyone in my family. I started therapy. To work through everything. The abandonment. The betrayal. The guilt. Because yes. I do feel guilt. Eleanor is 83 years old. She's in a facility that's not great. And I could fix that with a phone call and $2,000 a month. But my therapist keeps reminding me. I didn't create this situation. I didn't choose to be disowned. I didn't choose to be treated like I was worthless for 28 years. I just finally chose to stop accepting it. It's been 3 months now. 3 months since I walked away from my family. And you know what? I sleep better at night. I wake up in the morning, and I don't immediately check my phone for crisis texts from Eleanor. I don't spend my weekends driving to doctor's appointments or handling someone else's emergencies. I have peace. For the first time in my adult life. My therapist says this is called setting boundaries. She says it's healthy. She says it's long overdue. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I'm the villain in this story. Because here's the thing about family trauma. It messes with your head. It makes you question everything. Even when you know, you made the right choice. I know I made the right choice. But that doesn't make it easy. Last month, I ran into Ashley at the grocery store. Sarah's daughter. The family princess. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me. Like she wanted to pretend she hadn't noticed me. But then she walked over. Daniel, she said quietly. How are you? I'm good, I replied. And I meant it. I heard about everything. With Grandma Eleanor. I nodded. Yeah. My mom says you abandoned her. I looked at Ashley. This 22-year-old girl who had been handed everything her entire life. Who had never been expected to sacrifice anything for anyone. Ashley, I said gently. Do you know how much money I spent taking care of Eleanor? She shook her head. $84,000. Over 3 years. Do you know how much your family contributed? Another head shake. $0. 0 visits. 0 phone calls. 0 effort. Ashley looked down at her shoes. So when your mom says I abandoned Eleanor, you might want to ask her, where was she for the past 3 years? Where was your dad? Where were you? Ashley started crying. Right there in the produce section. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know you were paying for everything. They never told me. Of course they didn't, I said. Because then they would have to admit that they were terrible children. And terrible people. I softened my voice. Ashley, you're not responsible for your parents' choices. But you are responsible for your own. And now you know the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. I haven't seen Ashley since. But I heard, through mutual friends, that she's been asking questions. About Eleanor's care. About the family's finances. About what really happened. Maybe there's hope for the next generation. Maybe Ashley will be better than her parents. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I've learned something important through all of this. Family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up. It's about sacrifice and love and support. And sometimes, the family you're born into isn't your real family at all. I have friends who would do anything for me. Coworkers who check on me when I'm sick. A neighbor who brings me soup when I'm having a bad day. These people, they're my real family now. Eleanor made her choice. She chose Robert and Sarah's approval over my love. She chose to disown the one person who had been taking care of her. And I made my choice. I chose my own well-being over their expectations. Do I feel bad that Eleanor is in a state facility instead of Sunset Manor? Yes. I do. Do I feel bad enough to go back to being the family scapegoat? No. I don't. Because here's what I've learned, you can't save people who don't want to be saved. You can't love people into treating you better. You can't sacrifice yourself to fix other people's character flaws. All you can do is, choose yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your happiness. And that's what I chose. So to anyone listening to this story, anyone who recognizes themselves in my situation, anyone who's been the family scapegoat, the family disappointment, the family ATM. You have permission to walk away. You have permission to stop accepting crumbs. You have permission to demand better. And if they choose to lose you rather than treat you with respect, then that tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. My grandmother said I have no grandson. So I canceled the nursing home check. And I said I have no grandma. Sometimes, the only way to win is to stop playing the game. If you liked this story, and if it helped you in any way, check out this other one on the screen. It's about setting boundaries with toxic parents. I think you'll find it enlightening. See you there.